Okay, so let's get started. So as I said, the topic is about kokorozashi and the pursuit of meaning in business. So we've already started the introduction part, and we start at 11:05 a.m. Panel discussion, and at 12 p.m. we'll take your questions from audience. Thank you very much. And let me continue explaining about the GLOBIS a little bit more. So do you know GLOBIS? Maybe some of you know, and maybe some of you don't know. And the GLOBIS, in short, is Japan's #1 MBA school. So why can we say that? Is because of two numbers. So one is we welcomed over 1,000 students to our MBA. So the second number is it's about 40% of share in Japan. So we started our business school in 2006 with just 78 students, but we've grown to Japan's #1 MBA school at the moment. So why can we become Japan's #1 MBA? I believe that's because of this educational principle. The first one is build practical skills. So we believe that the business education should be practical to get the result in your business. The second one is to create a lifelong network. So people make up a society, so it's very important to have a good relationship with good people for a long time. And the third one is about kokorozashi. So what's kokorozashi? Is in short, like a personal mission. So we think it's very important to have kokorozashi. So why is it important to have kokorozashi? Is because of the theme of today's seminar. So it's to find out how living with a purpose can enrich both your career and life in various ways. So we are talking about kokorozashi with GLOBIS alumni. So here we have 3 panelists. So let me introduce 3 panelists to you. The first panelist is Brandon. He's alumnus from 2013, full-time MBA, project director of business and legal affairs at SoundCloud. The second one is Saskia from 2013, full-time MBA, operations manager, the workplace wellness project. And the third one is Tiffany, alumna from 2018, full-time MBA, director of content strategy acquisition and distribution. And thank you very much for attending today's session. And we also have a moderator. He's Mr. Tomoya Nakamura, Nakamura-san. He's a president, GLOBIS USA, and former dean of GLOBIS English MBA. So he welcomed and studied with the 3 panelists in Tokyo. So he wrote a lot about articles and books about kokorozashi. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the mic to Nakamura-san. Okay.
Thank you. Katsan, can you turn off the page?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for attending. My name is Tomoya Nakamura. I'll be the moderator today. You are very lucky. This is the first time we are doing a kokorozashi seminar in the Americas. So you are the first mover to hear about kokorozashi. And I am very excited to meet my former students, Brandon, Saskia, and Tiffany. First, may I ask the 3 panelists to briefly introduce about yourself. Let's go in alphabetical order. Brandon, can you start us?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Good to see all of your faces. And for people who don't have their camera on, it's great to have you here. What about me? I attended GLOBIS in 2013. Decided actually to move to Japan after my wife and I went to Tokyo for our honeymoon and fell in love with it. So that's kind of our quick background story. I am a practicing lawyer, qualified in the state of California, and I've worked at many top companies and law firms, and currently I'm at a company called SoundCloud, which is a big digital music service provider. So yeah, great to meet you all.
Thank you, Brandon.
Sure.
Saskia, may I ask for your introduction?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here and see all of you, Dean Nakamura, and of course also Brandon, who was in my class in Japan. I'm originally from Belgium. I actually have a master's in Japanese studies. So for me, there's a lifelong link with Japan. So, you know, when the time came to do an MBA, applying to GLOBIS was like, yes, this is what I need to do. So I was very happy to go to Japan. And I learned a lot. And now I somehow ended up in the United States. So I live close to San Francisco, and I work here as an operations manager for a company called the Workplace Wellness Project. Thank you.
Thank you, Saskia. And Tiffany?
Hey everyone, I'm Tiffany, originally from China and moved to the US in high school. And I've been working in the entertainment industry in LA for the past a little over 8 years. Before I joined MBA, I was working for a leading tech company from China. I was leading their called Eco. I was the head of their content acquisition distribution team in the US. So some of the project that I worked on was the movie The Great Wall starring Matt Damon. Then also my team also saw the first Chinese drama on Netflix ever bought called Empresses in the Palace. And then I went to Japan for my MBA 3 years ago. And then after that, I returned to LA, joined my last company called On Demand Korea, which is a Korean entertainment company that was bringing K-pop, K-drama into the Western market. So we co-hosted the BTS concert in North America. And then also I was in the distribution team for the Oscar-winning movie Parasite. And then last year I joined my current company called Bigo Live, which is a Singaporean live streaming app that we have a little over 30 million monthly active user. I'm leading a team of 12 in both LA and Mexico right now, responsible for a 15 million monthly revenue stream for the company in the US. That's all from me.
Thank you, Tiffany. Now, maybe the most difficult question from the beginning, and hearing that Saskia, you have studied Japanese, I'm going to start from you. What is kokorozashi?
Well, if you translate the Japanese, it's like, you know, ambition. But for me, it's just so much more. And especially having had the experience of studying about kokorozashi under you, Dean Nakamura, for me, it was so much more about finding out who I truly am, finding out what drives me, and especially in my case, finding out what pressure I had from other people to conform to their norms, and how that actually shaped my life, and how to change that around so that I could start doing what I really wanted for me, and not because, you know, my parents wanted it or my peers thought I should do it. So for me, that was a big eye opener.
Thank you. Saskia, if I may ask you a question. Mm-hmm. You have graduated from my understanding, one of the top university in Belgium. Mm-hmm. You still have that social pressure from your parents or your friends?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And,
Even, yeah, sorry.
and you were trying to kind of become, how to say, to fulfill their expectations?
Yes. And that even led me to start my own company, right? And I, you know, looking from the outside, I looked extremely successful, extremely happy, but I wasn't. I felt this hole in myself. And that's what led me, you know, at 37, 38 to look for, and maybe that leads into your next question already, but to look for what is wrong, right? And that led me to search, to think maybe I have to go back to school, and that led me to find GLOBIS.
Thank you very much. Brandon, the same question. What is kokorozashi? Can you help us understand?
Sure. For me, and I say for me intentionally because I think it's special for everybody and unique, but for me, there's a personal element, which is some of what Saskia was saying about the sort of passion, the motivation, the thing that gets you excited to get up and get to work every day. And then to me, there's also a societal or a how do you impact others element to it. And I think that for me personally, I can't have a kokorozashi without both. And then the third element for me is a challenge. I feel like when you have a kokorozashi, it can't be easy, right? I feel like it requires commitment and some maybe taking of risk or some sacrifice to reach this personal mission, as we call it. And then I would say the last thing about kokorozashi is that it's not sort of a static concept. I think it moves throughout the course of your life, and it should be something that allows you to have continuous growth, either personally or professionally or both over the course of your life. So.
Thank you very much. Brandon, if I may ask you, you said, you know, kokorozashi is a challenge and it continuously kind of pushes you to maybe work or study more. And Saskia was saying it's not about social, you know, meeting social expectation. So right now we have the Beijing Olympics right now. It's not something like a gold medal or a silver medal. No. Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah, so imagine if you say, I have a personal mission, right? Your personal mission is to get that gold medal. And you go to the Beijing Olympics and you get that gold medal. Now, what are you living for? That's it. It can't be something that's just sort of a frozen, static, singular goal, I would say. I think that it should be more of a driving purpose in your life. And, you know, leaning on what Saskia said, it needs to come from you personally, not from what the outside world tells you it should be.
Thank you. So it has to come from inside. Yeah. And if I understood you, it's kind of like an evolving goal.
Yes.
I see.
For me, yes.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Tiffany, what is kokorozashi to you? How would you explain kokorozashi to others?
Sure. So I believe the official translation from GLOBIS is personal mission, and it's actually kokorozashi is a Chinese character. So there's a heart in the character. So in Chinese, that character actually means something that your heart is determined to do in your life. And for me personally, it's more about my aspiration, my passion, my drive, my expectation for myself, something that motivates me to wake up in the morning and something that keeps me fighting in this often challenging life. Yeah.
Thank you. Because Tiffany explained about the Chinese character, let me just pull out one of my slides. I hope you can see them. And Tiffany was explaining that there's a heart in the bottom part of this Chinese character, and the top part is samurai, a Japanese warrior. Typically, if you have seen the Hollywood movies, samurai, they know where to die. Means they know where to put their life on the line. So kokorozashi is something that you can put your life on the line. Thank you very much. Second question, I'd like to go reverse order. Tiffany, how did you come across kokorozashi?
Yeah, so the first time I heard of this phrase is when I was searching for my MBA program. So I was looking into programs in US, China, Singapore, Europe. And so I have the cultural background of both US and China. And there's so many, from both countries, there's so many unicorn companies, like companies that grow really, really fast. But those companies, most of them also go bankrupt very easily. So I was also thinking, oh, how can we have a sustainable business? And I look into companies that last for over 100 years. Turns out Germany and Japan have most of those companies that last for a really, really long time. So that was one of the reasons I decided to join GLOBIS, because I think kokorozashi is such an important concept in Japanese business practice, and they actually align with everything that I believe in. And then I also want to learn how to build a sustainable business. So that's also like very important factor I joined GLOBIS.
Thank you. Oh, so I did not know that GLOBIS was not your initial choice. Japan was not in your search.
Kokorozashi was really important.
Thank you. Brandon, for you, where did you first hear the word kokorozashi?
Definitely when researching MBAs in Japan and when I found GLOBIS. That was the first time I heard of it. And it was also for me a big part of the motivation for applying and joining back in 2013 was the idea of finding a personal mission. I was at a stage in my career where I wasn't where I wanted to be. I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. I was in a place that was very comfortable and secure. And my wife was too, actually. And after we took our trip to Japan and to China on our honeymoon and decided we loved Japan, we decided we wanted to live abroad together. And it was just the concept of kokorozashi kind of gave me that extra push to say, hey, let's give up these very secure, very comfortable jobs and move 5,000 miles away to a place we've only been once and trust in ourselves that we have the motivation and the capacity to figure it out and make it work for us for the long term. So yeah, but that's where I first heard of the concept.
Thank you. Yep. What you said and Saskia said is very contradictory to what general people pursue. You want a comfortable life, you want to be secured. Yeah. You are already a lawyer, you are working in a law firm, yeah. But you feel something missing.
Yes, very much.
Why is it so? Because the general public will say, you're very successful.
Yeah, success and money, people tend to correlate. And I just don't find that money does that for me. I've made all sorts of different levels of income annually. And having one level of income versus another, vast differences, double, triple difference. It didn't make a difference in my level of happiness or fulfillment. And that's when I knew that, I could afford to take the risk of leaving a comfortable job to find something that would actually fulfill me. And that's when we made the decision, and it upset my father-in-law very much. And people thought I was crazy because typically if you leave the legal profession, it's very hard to get back in. You just are considered somebody who's not committed to the profession, which wasn't true. But especially since I went to do an MBA, people thought, oh, you know, maybe he's not really keen on being a lawyer, which wasn't true. But yeah, so it was a big risk, actually, massive. But I believed in myself and my wife, and we worked it out. So very happy, wouldn't have changed it for the world.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah.
Saskia, in your case, you know, because you have done Japanese studies, probably you knew the terminology kokorozashi.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you first heard kokorozashi?
Oh, probably in a book that I read. I used to read these bilingual series, you know, Japanese on one page, English on the other page. And there was one, you know, about the samurai. I think it was called Bushido, actually. You know, so I'm pretty sure that I read it in there. So when I was at that point that, you know, Brandon was just describing, like, okay, you look extremely successful, but you're not feeling happy. You're not feeling, you know, you're not feeling the success that other people see in you. I started consulting my friends, and one of my friends, actually the director of the Belgium-Japan Association in Belgium, she knew Sven. And, you know, Sven is also a Belgian employee of GLOBIS. I think he just started at GLOBIS at that point. And she said, well, you know, I heard from Sven that there's this new program in Japan where you can go study an MBA. Why don't you look into that? And so I did, and I applied. And so it's 10 years ago, right at this, you know, it's so crazy how fast time goes. So I remember, you know, writing all the essays and getting more and more excited about going to Japan to do this program. And I was just so excited when it all came true.
Thank you. You were in Japan before with the JET program. So
yes.
It was your second time to come to Japan? Yes,
exactly. The first time I was there on the west coast of Japan, in Ishikawa Prefecture, in a small city, Japanese size, you know, Komatsu. A lot of people probably know it because there's a factory for the big Komatsu trucks and diggers and all of that. So I spent a really wonderful year there. But then I went back to Belgium to start a career. So I was, you know, so excited to go back to Japan again because I knew it's such a great place to live. And this time I got to study, not work. So that was also really nice. Yeah.
Thank you. Saskia talked about Bushido. This is the books of the samurai, and maybe you might feel strange, but this is a required reading in the GLOBIS MBA. So yes, you know, we are studying business, but we study kokorozashi, we study Bushido, we study about Wang Yanmin. This is a Chinese philosopher. So of course, you know, we do strategy, marketing, and finance, but we do a lot of, around not just business, but fields in arts and sometimes philosophy. Thank you. To the three of you, and whoever is ready, you know, please don't say, you know, I will go first. We understood the concept of kokorozashi, and I remember asking you to present your kokorozashi in front of, you know, our class. But how do you make it? Even for a Japanese, you know, who is familiar with the word, not everyone has a kokorozashi. So how did you create one within your, you know, 1 year MBA study? Anyone who is ready to answer, can you show by your hands? Thank you, Tiffany.
Okay, I'll go first. Yeah, because I remember in our kokorozashi class, I have Nakamura sensei. So I remember you have this worksheet for us where you asked us to put in like lots of important things that happened in our life. So at that point, I remember something happened to me in high school when I first moved from China to the US. Lots of classmates, they look down on me just because I'm from China and they think China is poor and undeveloped. So I was not happy back then. And then later on, I find out that they got this stereotype and impression from media and content. So that was the moment I was like, oh, I knew my kokorozashi is to use content to educate and connect the world. So I still remember sitting in Sensei's class, and then everything just clicked. Like I feel like, oh, this is what I experienced in my life, something I didn't know it would be grow to something back then. But when I was sitting in the class, after I read all the books and everything, I just feel like, oh, everything clicked, and I found my kokorozashi. And then after that, I just feel like GLOBIS actually helped me to put my wish or my dream into feasible and actionable plan. And then I have the skill set, and also I was really brave, and I become more and more willing to take risk. I feel like GLOBIS gave me the skill set, but also gave me lots of psychological safety. Like all the classmates, professors, and everyone, they're just so supportive. So I actually got lots of connections out of it as well. So yeah, that's my kokorozashi.
Thank you. Wow. Tiffany, do you want to lecture? Because you explained it better than me. Brandon, I thought you had your hand up too. How did you come up with your kokorozashi?
So I had a sense, I think like Tiffany, when I was joining GLOBIS, of kind of what I was interested in doing, kind of what I felt would fulfill me, which was working in music and in the arts. But what happened when I came to GLOBIS was actually that I was still a relatively young lawyer. I mean, I had become a lawyer in 2008. So when I came to GLOBIS in 2013, I'd only been a lawyer for 5 years. And I happened to be representing this really well-known music producer who had just placed a really huge record in Japan, actually, on the one of the biggest groups in Japan called Exile. And right after I came back from my honeymoon, he said, "Hey, I just placed this huge record in Japan. It would be great to have somebody on the ground in Japan to help me expand my business there." And then I was like, whoa, this is interesting timing because we love Japan. We're thinking about moving back. And so it became a situation where when I arrived in Japan, I was kind of immediately swept into the Japanese music industry, which is the second largest music industry in the world in terms of economic value each year. And it became clear to me that not only was I interested in music in the US, where I'd always worked, but I was interested in having an impact in the global music industry. That's kind of how I started to form my kokorozashi, which is bridging cultures through music and the arts.
Thank you. So Brandon, listening to you, it seems timing or some kind of fortune is also important.
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe I would have gotten around to it at some point anyway. I mean, I did also go to school in the UK, so I had some sense that I wanted to have an international element to my fulfillment. But yeah, moving to Japan and then from there working a lot in Korea and joining SM Entertainment and becoming director of business and legal affairs there, it was all because of that move to Japan ultimately.
Thank you. Saskia, how did you come up with your kokorozashi?
Looking inside myself. But also I want to just tag on a little bit to what Brandon said and say, I really believe in this thing called synchrodestiny. It's also a book by Deepak Chopra. And so what he talks about is basically having your eyes open all the time. And there's opportunities that come by you all the time. And you just have to look and be open to see them. And that's what happened with me. Joining GLOBIS was one of those moments. I decided to give up my company. I decided to move away from the place where I'd lived most of my life, start a new life in Japan. And so that is such an important skill to have. And GLOBIS even taught me that more, because I met so many interesting people like Brandon. Like, I'd never met a lawyer before. I'd never been friends with a person of color before, just because it was not in my circles in Belgium. So it just opens your eyes so much. And so meeting all these people is also part of like how I found my kokorozashi, is looking inside myself, having all these new experiences. I wanted to help people become better people by giving them tools to become so. And so everything I've done after GLOBIS was informed by this, and it's helped me grow so much. So when I graduated from GLOBIS, I was able to join Deloitte in Japan as the first non-Japanese person in their HR department, which was huge. And I helped them start up a diversity and inclusion program, to help people learn more about themselves and bridge cultures, just like Brandon is doing. Brandon is doing it through music, and I'm trying to do it through education and helping build bridges.
Thank you very much. Synchro destiny.
Yes.
That's kind of, everything right in terms of maybe the location, the timing, the people you meet. Let me share one of my slides. And I'm not sure when Brandon and Saskia, you were in Tokyo, I was using this slide. For Tiffany, I think I used the same slide, but let me show it to you. This is currently how I teach kokorozashi. Maybe very similar to how Brandon explained kokorozashi. It's an intersection of yourself and your social interests. Many full-time MBAs, especially from overseas, said, Nakamura-san, I have never heard kokorozashi. What do you mean? I don't understand. So basically, talking to my faculties, we came up with two terminology. One is being. Who are you? What is important to you as an individual? What is your family values? What is your personal values? This is the lower blue part. The pink part is meaning. I know most of you read the New York Times or Financial Times on your iPhone or maybe on your computer. But if we had a paper, let's say New York Times, do you start from the economic page? Do you start from international relations? Do you start from sports, or do you start from entertainment? That's basically the pink part. And I think we say kokorozashi is the intersection of what you want to do as an individual and what excites you. So that's how we are explaining kokorozashi today. Maybe it's good to take questions now. I'm changing a little bit. Do you have any question regarding kokorozashi and how to make or write up a kokorozashi? If there's any question right now, I think we have people who went through this process. So if you can write to the chat box, like Tiffany, I think the panelists might have a better answer than me. So if you have questions regarding kokorozashi or how to build one, please feel free to write on the chat box. If not, I will continue asking some questions to the panelists. Are we okay? I see other question in the chat box. Is kokorozashi something like a single statement? I think it depends. But typically our students have made, I don't know how many minutes I gave you. Brandon and Saskia, do you remember how long was your presentation? 5 minutes?
Yeah, it would have been 5 to 7 minutes maybe.
So I was asking Brandon and Saskia to kind of create a PowerPoint. And it's kind of hard to imagine, but some classes, the students start crying. For example, one lady talked about her kokorozashi, but in the process, she found that her kokorozashi is not only hers, meaning her grandmother shared the same kokorozashi. And she was saying that her grandmother passed away like 6 months ago. So she's saying, I am taking over her dream. And this is a joint dream between my grandma and myself. And she started crying. And because of that, many of our classroom started crying. So it's very, how to say, weird in an MBA class to see, tears. But, if it's a personal story and if it can get some kind of social acceptance or social kind of support, the close to, I would say, entire class was crying when this lady talked about her grandma. So this is kind of like a power of kokorozashi. And our founder, Yoshito Hori, says the law of energy is from a high passionate person, the energy transcends. So if Brandon is the most highest passionate person about the music industry, whoever gets close to Brandon would get not infected to COVID, but infected to his kokorozashi. Let's have global music and let's understand, cultural differences. These kind of transcend from one person to 10 people and to the entire community. If Natsumi-san, are there any questions answered?
No, you are up to date. So
okay.
There's no question for now.
Thank you. To the 3 panelists, after setting your kokorozashi, what has changed? Anyone who is ready, can you maybe raise your hand? Yeah, thank you, Saskia.
Saskia, yeah.
Brandon also touched upon this earlier. Things change, right? So your kokorozashi is, you should not keep it as a rigid thing because your circumstances change and you change. Like in my case, as I said, I graduated, I started working at Deloitte, and I did 3 wonderful years in the diversity and inclusion department. And then I moved to the United States. And I found that my experience in diversity and inclusion was not transferable to the United States, because here diversity and inclusion is a very big thing, but it has completely different themes than Japan. And so I found that I needed to pivot, and I found that I needed to adjust my kokorozashi. Well, before I was like, okay, I'm going to step in and help people myself I now found that I am much more successful if I help people to help other people. So I actually took a step back out of the limelight, and I am supporting my colleagues who are in the front line and helping other people. And that is, it's so rewarding to me, because what and maybe I should explain what my colleagues do. So they are psychologists, psychiatrists, and they coach people in resilience. And specifically, they coach people who work what we call on the front line in the digital world. So they are moderators, they are people who look at online content to find things that we don't want to see, like unfortunately abuse or bad language or terrorism. So these people deal with these horrible things every day. And the people I support teach those people resilience and strategies to cope with what they do, what they have to do on a daily basis to keep us safe. And so for me, that's like, wow, you know, I'm making an impact by supporting these people so that they can do their best job in actually helping people, you know, be able to deal with this and, you know, stave off some people who might, like, we've had instances of people threatening to commit suicide, or so it's a very, very important job.
Thank you, Saskia. Brandon?
Yep. The question, what has changed since? I think the biggest thing that's changed for me is nobody ever questions what my passion is anymore, right? It's well known and it's quite clear because of the steps I've taken since formulating my kokorozashi that that's where I'm at, and that's what my focus is. And similarly, I don't question it myself anymore. I think those really are the biggest changes that have occurred. It has taken me to different countries and different companies and everything, but the biggest changes are you know, just really establishing who I am, at least professionally, and sort of what my goals are. And by doing that, it's opened up a lot of opportunities, because when people know you're committed to something, then like Nakamura-san said, you start to attract, sort of like a magnet, people who have a similar interest or who want to support you and doing the best that you can towards fulfilling those goals. So incredible opportunities have opened up since then.
Thank you. Very, very interesting. You know, opportunities will open if you have a kokorozashi.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
probably, you know, because Brandon is talking or, you know, actually committing, a lot of people know what he wants to do. So before that, you know, he was a successful lawyer, but as a lawyer, you should do this, or there was a lot of, how to say, molding maybe to become a typical lawyer. But now, you know, I think you stand out in the music industry. So a lot of people notice you before, how to say, going through a lot of maybe, you know, searching.
Yes, exactly. A lot of searching, and people question the search, right? And that gets back to what Saskia was saying, is you got to step out and perform that search for yourself. But most people don't comprehend. Even family members, they don't get it. Why are you moving to Japan? Why are you in Korea right now? What are you doing? They don't. And at a certain point, you realize that you can't explain it to people until eventually they just see it. And now there's no more questions. Oh, Brandon's in Korea. Oh, Brandon's in China. Brandon's in Japan. Brandon's doing this. Brandon's with this. It's not a, even though they don't fully understand exactly what I do, they understand the mission, which is, I think that's the biggest change.
And in your case, Brandon, I think, you know, you are very lucky to have a wife who understands your passion and your kokorozashi.
This is crucial. I mean, oh man, crucial. I mean, it's just beyond, first of all, I wouldn't have moved to Japan if my wife wasn't with me and we didn't discover it together. That's for sure. And I wouldn't have gotten through it and the issues that I faced and the challenges if she wasn't with me and we weren't very well aligned in what we wanted out of life. So, you know, most people, like you said, they want the comfort, the security. A lot of women I may have married may have said, no, we're not leaving. What do you mean you're giving up this well-paid job to go to Japan? No, that's not happening. Allie was like, yeah, let's go. Let's do it. It sounds great. I'm happy to go. So that really was essential and remains essential, because the more that I've pursued my kokorozashi, the busier and busier and busier and busier I've become. And if I did not have that support, there's no way I could carry the load. So yeah, thank you for pointing that out. It's super important.
Thank you, Brandon. Tiffany, what changed after defining your kokorozashi?
So I remember right after I took the kokorozashi course, I did something crazy. Oh, actually, calculated risk in MBA term. So I remember the same time we had a venture planning course, and me and my team member, we got #1 in that from our business plan. And then all of a sudden, like my mentor, my professor, and all the classmates, they were like, Tiffany, you have to try your business idea in the real world. And I was like, oh, it's a really ambitious plan, but I needed 25 million. I wanted to create my own video streaming site. So I was like, 25 million, but everyone was so encouraging and supportive. So I decided that, oh, I'm gonna give it a try. So lots of my professors, they shared their connection with me. My classmates, they introduced me to their friends. Myself, I also wrote hundreds of emails to different VC firms. So in the end, I was able to pitch in front of Sony Music Entertainment. It was just 3 blocks away from GLOBIS campus. I still remember I was so nervous. I threw up in the restroom at GLOBIS, and then I walked to Sony with my teammates and did the pitch to their SVPs. And also I wrote tons of emails to the Google Venture. So eventually one of the co-founder of YouTube, Steve Chen, he replied my message on Facebook. He added me as friend and said, oh, I would love to hear your business plan. So next day I took my team member and then just directly flew to Silicon Valley and pitched him. It was a crazy experience. And then also my professor introduced me to lots of CEOs, like CEO of Funimation and lots of great companies. And I didn't get 25 million in the end, but the experience and connections and everything was just so invaluable for me. And it was such a great experience. And then with my current job, I'm supporting about 70,000 individual influencer and content creators on my daily jobs. And I help them to improve their content strategy so they can monetize globally. So I just hope that with everything I have, my connection, my skill set, that I'll be able to support more and more individual content creators in the world on their monetization, to support their living, so that they can, to help people that thought there were no one become someone, and to have their voice to start a movement. So it doesn't matter if I have my own company or not, but it's always about how big of impact, positive impact I can make in the world. Yeah, that's my story.
Thank you. I knew you were going to Sony Music, but I didn't know it was that important. And but by the way, Tiffany makes a beautiful YouTubes. Some on cooking, some on travel. I don't know if she does it today, but when she was an MBA student, she made many, which kind of made us, feel very happy. Thank you. from 12, we intend to take questions for the panelists. So maybe my last question to the three of you. I think a couple of years ago, you were on the opposite side. Maybe Hori-san, myself, we made a lot of MBA speeches in United States, in Singapore, in China. Do you have one piece of advice to the attendees today? I'm not sure if the attendees are interested in MBA, but I think they are interested in kokorozashi. So from that regard, if there's one piece of advice from you to the attendees today, anyone who is ready, can you get started? Yeah, thank you, Saskia.
Okay, I would say find your kokorozashi, but don't pin yourself down and be successful for the right reason.
Find your kokorozashi, but don't pin down. Leave some room to maneuver or change.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
why so, Saskia?
Because life changes, you know, as we now saw with, you know, the last 2 years, like who expected this, right? I was about to start my own business again in the United States, and I had to shelve that because it was not viable. But everything worked out in the end because I kept my eyes open, and now I work with this incredible company. I'm so happy to have landed here because it opened my eyes to mental well-being in a way that I never thought about before. It's just like, you know, being in class with Brandon, my first, you know, experience with people of color opened my eyes to something completely new. And now I'm like in the mental space, and it's so important. You know, so many people, especially here in the United States, and I guess also in Japan, you know, like the suicides, people being unhappy, people getting sick, it's all because there's something missing in your alignment with yourself or with, you know, the people around you. So I think that I'm just continuing on my path, and I'm learning more and more. And I'm so grateful for all the people and you know, GLOBIS also that brought me these things and helped me to evolve. So yes.
Thank you, Saskia. Brandon, Tiffany, when you're ready.
Sure. Yeah, I can go. So recently, just randomly, because as a result of, I get a lot of people to reach out on LinkedIn. And now that you achieve a certain level of success and people think you have certain experience, they begin to reach out, and a lot of students and others, junior lawyers and stuff. And so I started to think of, and people would ask me, how did you do this? How did you go from where you came from, go to Japan, work in Korea, you know, first Black person to work at SM Entertainment? How do you do these things? Like, how did you go about it? And what is your ways of success? So I started coming up with habits of success that I would post as stories on Instagram. And I think I came up with 5, but I would like to read the 4th one because I think it answers your question, if you guys don't mind. So I said, my habit of success, number 4, believe in yourself deeply. So I said, this should perhaps be habit number 1. At one point or another, when chasing big dreams, we are prone to start doubting ourselves once we reach certain barriers or obstacles. Some are more prone to self-disbelief than others. In fact, some people don't believe in themselves from the very inception of their dream or goal. So they just let it go without ever trying, or they give it a half-assed try that was never truly intended to lead to success. I say it is precisely when you hit those barriers and obstacles that you must reaffirm your deep belief in yourself. You are entirely capable of anything you put your mind to and commit to doing. Your imagination is a window into the future if you believe you can make it happen. So when you set a big goal and you deeply believe you can and will achieve it, then you act with true intention to do exactly that. You accept that there will be distractions. You accept that there are pressures of time, resources, and other external pressures, but you believe that you can envision and pursue a path that will get you to your goal, and then you walk that path and adjust as needed. So that's really my recommendation and advice is, when it all comes down to it, I don't care, you know, family, not family, friends, whatever. It comes down to you actually believing in yourself at the end of the day. And that is my biggest advice. You know, if you set a kokorozashi, you know, if you set a goal, you set a dream, if you don't believe in it, you can't expect anybody else to. And I think that's where it needs to start from. It's self-belief.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yep.
Kokorozashi in Chinese character again is a samurai heart. So you have to put your life on the line on what you do or believe. Thank you, Brandon. Tiffany?
So I saw people in the chat said, oh, what if they don't have a kokorozashi? So I think it's okay that you don't have a kokorozashi for now, but you might want to keep trying. And you know, there's so many things happen in our life. They're good and they're bad, and all of them could be something that help you to find your kokorozashi. So you just have to put yourself out there, be brave, and keep experience and keep trying. And then I think eventually you'll find your kokorozashi, which will be the reason that you wanted to do something. And then I still remember this concept that Nakamura sensei taught us in class. It's called synchronicity. So once you have kokorozashi, you find your reason, and then you need ability, you need the skill set. Those are the things that I learned a lot from GLOBIS. GLOBIS gave me the skill set to make my kokorozashi come true. And then the last piece is chance. When you have the right timing, you have a good, you're lucky, and then everything at that moment will just sync all together, and then yeah, your dream might come true. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany.